Well, it looks like we are live. StreamYard's telling me we're live, and I believe it. This is streaming into a number of places, which is really exciting. The technology for live video these days is coming on in leaps and bounds, and StreamYard are right at the forefront of it. You could be watching this show in the John X Marketing Group. You could be watching it in the Client Attraction Academy group. You could indeed be watching it on the Johnny Cooper Global Business page, in which case, welcome. And you could be watching it on LinkedIn. And I'm also told it's streaming on Twitter, although it's a whole new thing for me. It's the first time we've actually streamed anything. Oh, yes, I can see it. It's actually streaming on my Twitter feed.
The
Oh my
wonders
golly
of
gosh.
technology, isn't it, Johnny?
That's incredible, isn't it? And there's somewhere else as well. Where else is it? Oh, yeah, on my YouTube channel. This is just crazy. We are omnipresent, Simon Alexander Ong. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Johnny, and thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, you are welcome. Just while we're building up a little bit of a live audience, let's get some of this agreed and ticked off. So these weren't lavish claims that I was making about you. You have indeed had your first ever book published by Penguin internationally. Is that right?
Indeed, it was one of the great positives from the COVID pandemic was coming out of it with a
Yeah,
book deal with the world's largest publishing house, which
that is
I'm
just
still pinching
incredible.
myself about. It's been incredible.
No, so you should. And not only that, as if that wasn't enough, the legendary Simon Sinek, him of the Start With Why fame, has published an endorsement for your book, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, I've been absolutely blessed. Receiving that endorsement from Simon Sinek, as well as Marie Forleo, Carrie Green, and other names,
Yeah.
has made me feel like a kid on Christmas Day morning, Johnny.
Well,
Opening up
I
the
bet,
emails
I bet.
and yeah, just to hear that they've been positive about the book and that they wanted to uh, contribute a blurb to the cover.
Yeah, no, it's just fantastic. I'm just I'm just setting up whilst we're getting the audience together. I am just setting up my page so I can see the various group feeds here because I need to just name check a couple of people. So we have a Facebook user saying, "Hi Johnny, I don't know who you are. So if you want to share your name, that would be great." It's probably worth, if you're on Facebook and you feel drawn to comment, just put your name after the comments so we know who the heck you are. Well, look, let's get into this, Simon. We have a community here of coaches and therapists and trainers, all folks who would who do aspire, and some of them are already, personal brands, position themselves out there in the world with something to tell. But of course, getting a book deal with a major international publisher, as you've said, the biggest publisher of these kind of books in the world, is a fantastic deal. Can you just backtrack a bit and tell us what kind of groundwork you've laid in order for your stuff to be attractive enough and to get the attention of a publishing house like Penguin? What have you been doing these last few years, in other words?
Definitely. I think one of the tips I give new entrepreneurs in this space, when we speak about coaches, therapists, consultants, Johnny, is the importance of relationship building. When I look at my habits and dissect them over the years that I've been an entrepreneur, one of the most powerful ones that have given me the greatest ROI is developing and cultivating new relationships every single week. Now, there's a multitude of things that we can do to achieve that. Of course, content creation is one, reaching out to people is another, but also getting people's attention that you are someone they should listen to, because we're so distracted nowadays. You have people getting emails and WhatsApp messages and DMs coming to their inboxes that sometimes you have to get a bit creative in
Yes.
order to build and cultivate those relationships. As an
Yeah.
example, if any of you have been connected with me on LinkedIn, you may have received a welcome voice note, no longer than about 7 or 8 seconds, but it's just to say hi, welcome you to my network. And that often gets seen and gets noticed by people who receive it. So I think that was one of the key parts of laying the foundation, which is working on my relationships, working on my network ever since I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
And
that's fantastic. So, is this primarily on LinkedIn where you work on this stuff? Then is that your kind of primary platform?
yeah, so the two platforms I primarily use are Instagram and LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn works great for sort of doing these voice notes because you know who
Mm,
you're speaking to, you know their background, where they were educated, what line of business they're in. Instagram for me is a bit harder, Johnny, because you can be followed by anyone and everyone.
yeah.
Also, many people have private profiles. So you don't really know what they do, what their background is. Some don't even have a photo.
Yeah.
And so that for me is a little bit harder. Now, if they send me a direct message, then of course, if I check they're legit, then I will respond and start building a relationship. But for me, LinkedIn is the easiest platform to do it on
Yeah. I get
because
that.
there tends to be more real people using a platform like LinkedIn that you can build a relationship with.
Yeah. So what's your offer when someone moves into your network and they want to work with you? What can they get from you?
Sure. So the way I do it is, for me, it's all about understanding where someone is. So a lot of people, when we discuss marketing, they think of USP being a unique selling point. For me, USP is much more about unique serving point. So when we
Like that.
listen to someone to understand what they're doing, what their challenges are, what excites them, what they are looking forward to this year, that gives us data. And that data gives us an insight into how we can serve them.
Mm,
Now, as a sort of first base, that could be something just as simple as an article that I could
mm,
forward them, or maybe a podcast recording that I was on,
yeah.
or maybe a freebie, such as a visualization guide or a sort of quiz that I can send them so they can get to better understand themselves around what they've just shared with me.
Yeah.
And then if that relationship gets cultivated more, Johnny, the next question I ask, which then allows me to decide what's the best offer for them, is
Mm,
simply, would you like to have a powerful conversation to explore this more?
mm,
And that's when we take that offline into a Zoom call or an in-person
yeah.
meeting where I can see what is the best offer at that moment for them. And it could
Yeah.
be anything from a private coaching relationship. It could be a one-day intensive. It could be a course. It could be a membership. There could be a variety of offers that I can tap into that would be different for client to client.
Yeah. 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 No, I love that. So it is just about serving. It's about solving problems, and
Mm,
that's exactly the way I work as well. Entering into a new conversation without any expectation that there's a particular
mm,
outcome to it, and just discovering what they need, and if we can help at all. Yeah,
mm.
no, I love that. All right, well let's get on to the book idea. First of all, tell our listeners what your book's called and what's it about.
So the book is called Energize, out on the 21st of April. And
Yeah.
the book focuses on the idea that unless you are managing your energy in an effective way, you cannot execute on the plans that you have in mind to accomplish your vision. Many of us will
Mm,
sit down at the beginning of a year and then we have this vision outlined of what we want to achieve. And then we go back into our meeting rooms or we go back to our desk and we start planning out how we are going to achieve that vision.
yes.
But the fundamental fact is that unless you have the energy to follow through on what you've put down on your plan, you will never move forward or create a
Yes.
feeling of momentum. And so for me, it was really about understanding how can we awaken our greatest sources of energy? How can we cultivate it? How can we rewire our energetic state mentally so we are conditioned to see our reality in the best way possible? How can we protect our energy and therefore create the best springboard to unleashing our hero potential?
Yeah. Now, I'm absolutely sure that's the case because there are incredibly talented people
Mm,
around my community who really never get rolling because they try a little bit and then they give up. I mean, I mean that's not all about what you're talking about, but I'm sure it's part of it.
mm,
What's a kind of tip? Can you give an overview? I mean, you've framed the problem really well. What about kind of solutions? Anybody thinking, yeah, that sounds great, Simon, but
Mm.
how do I get my energy in the right space? What's your go-to on that?
Yeah, sure. So for me, there's three very quick things that we can all start doing immediately. The first is simply taking a step back from the noise of the everyday, which is something few of us actually do. So, what I mean by this is we tend to put into our diaries social events, work meetings, telephone calls, but very rarely do we actually schedule a meeting with ourselves.
Mm,
So, the first thing you can do is maybe this week schedule an hour or two for yourself, step back from the noise, and simply ask yourself, what does success mean to me? What does fulfillment look like? And what sort of impact do I want to have in the world?
mm.
The reason I share this as a first tip is because many of us are exhausted, not because we're doing too much, but because we're doing too little of the things that bring us joy
Yeah,
and following our own definition of success. We're so exhausted because we're following other people's definitions
yeah,
and measuring our progress against their metrics. So the
yeah.
first step is
I love
really
that.
to bring it back to your own definition, because
Mm.
the greatest challenge that you and I have is building our life around those answers. So
Yeah, I sometimes feel like exhaustion can come from not just working too hard, but working too hard and getting no results. I mean, that kind of
mm,
piles on the mental exhaustion, doesn't it?
definitely, definitely. I mean, that's why you want to be working hard on something that means something to you. And the word that comes to mind is being spiritually aligned. When you
Mm.
work hard on something that means something to you, and you can feel and see the impact,
Yeah.
you find the energy to keep moving forward to make things happen.
No, you
Uh,
really do, and then little bits of success just feed back into little extra bits of energy,
mm,
don't they?
definitely, definitely. So
Mm.
that's the first tip, Johnny.
All right,
The second
beautiful.
practical thing,
By the way,
uh,
just before you launch into any more of
sure.
these golden value bombs, if you're watching this live, give us some hearts, give us some thumbs, say hi, let us know you're here, and if you have any questions for Simon, type them in. But one thing I'd like to see from you if you're watching this live right now, Simon has written a book called Energize. It's his first published book, and he has a publishing deal with Penguin International. I'm not at all jealous, by the way, because I've self-published two books, and I don't really want Penguin interfering with them, I must say. Yeah, kudos, mate. I'm a little bit jealous, honestly. But on a serious note, for the listeners, have you got a book in you? That's the question. And if so,
Mm.
just jot down what could be the title of your book in the comments. Give us the title for your book and see if we can get an inkling of what it might be about. So if you're watching this live, hi Sarah, I can see Sarah's there and Asif as well. Type in a title for a book that you might write. Let's just see what your appetite for this is. So
I think
Simon,
that's a great
you were
call to
talking
action, Johnny.
about pulling a couple of things out of your book, which having framed the problem being that we pay very little attention to our energy levels when we're doing
Mm,
stuff. We just grind away and kind of do it. Your first tip was to schedule some me time, wasn't it? So that you
mm,
can reflect on your goals and your values and why you're doing it and all the rest of it.
mm.
I can see why Simon Sinek wrote you wrote your endorsement now. What's the second tip you could throw in about how you recover lost energy, if you like?
Definitely. I think the second for me, in which this activity unlocks energy for living life true to ourselves. You may have come across the work of Bronnie Ware. She's a former Australian palliative care nurse, and she wrote a book called The Regrets of the Dying. And the number one regret
Wow.
amongst the dying was, I wish I lived a life more true to myself than a life for others. And this is where my second bit of advice comes in. It is to tap into an attitude of gratitude. And Pam Grant, the author of Thank and Grow Rich, shared it best when she said, gratitude is the gateway drug to abundance. Gratitude is the gateway drug to abundance.
Isn't
Now,
that
how
tremendous? Thank and grow rich. What a great,
it's a great
what a
play on
great.
words, isn't it, Johnny?
It's just it's almost a kind of stealing a book title without stealing it. It's wonderful.
I've seen lots of other books do something similar. You know, whether it's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, which is Marie Kondo's book, and people can use The Life-Changing Magic of X.
Yeah.
I think it's great because it taps into the public psyche. They know that title, and it sort of taps into the similar sort of audience.
Yeah. By the way, you've got some support here for your love for the top 5 regrets of dying. 5 regrets of dying. Karen Taylor loves that too.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. It's a wonderful title, apart from anything else. It's you know, it's at the same time sad and yet kind of inspiring, isn't it?
Definitely. But on the topic of gratitude, Johnny, here's two really powerful tips that I want to share, and I want to also explain how you can apply it practically. The first one is an exercise I tend to do with clients to elevate their energy immediately is to get them to do 3 quick things, and they're very simple but very powerful. The first is to write down, and feel free to join me doing this if you're listening right now. The first is to write down the name of someone who you can be truly grateful for that has shaped you into the person that you are today.
Yeah.
So it could be a loved one, it could be a friend, a colleague, a mentor, whoever it may be. The second step is to write down in as much detail as you can why you chose that person. What have they done for you specifically? What would life be without them? How have they impacted your thinking, your direction in life, and so on? And the third step, and this one here is where it all comes together. The third step is to drop them a call and to read out word by word what you wrote down. And just notice what you notice. It's a very powerful activity because what we're doing here is we're not expressing gratitude for gratitude's sake. We're expressing gratitude with intention. We're slowing down and really reflecting and understanding the role that people have in our lives.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that we can do. And when you start to embrace that every day for your business, you'll be surprised about what comes back. I will share a great example, Johnny. Two years ago, I was invited to be interviewed on Sky News. The interview was only about 6 minutes, but it went. It was sort of late afternoon on a weekday, so lots of my friends saw it on the television.
Yeah.
And before I left the building, I walked up to one of the reception, the staff working in reception, and I asked him, "Can I get the names of the people who brought me in for today's interview?" And he said, "Sure." So he wrote down the names of 3 people that contacted me for the interview. And I said, "Thank you very much." I went home and I ordered each of those people a box of chocolates. And I got a message back saying, "Simon, that was only the second time that has been done. Thank you so much."
Yeah.
And it just shows that even though we think people do this stuff, not really many practice it. And if you can practice it when building your business, whether that is with your clients, your partners, people that have had an impact on your life, you will be surprised how much that can help you.
Yeah, it's definitely true that. And, you know, we don't reach out to other people enough, despite the fact that we're incredibly connected, you know, on social media. I did a little thing at Christmas where I disciplined myself to send out 10 text messages just to say, instead of going Merry Christmas, which everybody does to everybody, I just said, this time of year, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you being in my life. You know, thanks for being around. And it was just incredible. People were going, wow. Yeah, you're welcome. It's, you know, it's great to have you here as well. So there's a digital equivalent of the box of chocolates, isn't there? Which is, it's about doing something that people don't expect as well. Doing
Definitely. I mean,
nobody else does, kind of thing.
Definitely. I think this goes back to, I mean, when we think about marketing, this all comes back to being human. It's sort of that personalized touch. If we can show people we've done something with a bit of thought, with a bit of intention, it goes a long way to showing that you really care about what you do.
Yeah,
And so
I
that's
agree.
why I think that way of embracing life each day can be so
Yes.
powerful in elevating our mood and our
Yeah.
energy.
I just want to I just want to go back to something you said,
Mm,
which set up that story. You said 2 years ago you were asked to go on Sky.
yeah.
Now I'm aware that you've been doing quite a lot of what most people would regard as relatively high profile stuff. You know,
Mm,
Forbes, Financial Times, Independent, all that kind of stuff, and the BBC, of course.
mm,
Um, how have you set yourself up? I think this is the right framing from a
mm.
question to be a person who gets to do that stuff. Because I think this will be really useful if we can get to
Mm.
the bottom of a formula, if there is such a thing. Because
Definitely. I think,
all the people in our community, um, are looking to build their profile. That's why they're
mm,
there. So how do you get this stuff? And then it's kind of PR, I guess, some of it, isn't it?
definitely. I think there's an
Mm.
element of, and I guess it's the same with many things that I do with my business, Johnny, is there's an
Mm.
element of work and there's also an element of luck because
Yeah.
you don't
I'm glad
always.
you admitted that because I was going to accuse you. I was going to accuse you of being a lucky bastard as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it's certainly an element of luck because you don't always know ahead of time how things that you are experimenting with, things that you're trying, are going to work out. You just don't know. We
yes, I
can't know.
like that. I like that.
And so, just to show you behind the scenes of how some of these things worked out, they weren't overnight. They weren't sort of like I'm going to do this and suddenly it happened.
Mm.
So going back 2 years, so 2020, I did the interview with Sky News. But the only reason I was contacted was because they picked up an article that I was mentioned in the Daily Express a few years before,
Wow,
in which I was
that's a
talking
shoot.
about ikigai, which is this Japanese
Yeah,
concept of living in flow and living with purpose.
that's right.
And the bit on that I call luck is that the interview segment was to interview somebody, whether that's a coach or uh, someone who knows about the Japanese culture,
Mm.
about a segment in which they wanted to talk about what contributed to a long life,
Yeah,
because they were celebrating this Japanese man who became suddenly holding the record for the longest life lived for a human.
yeah.
Uh,
Like
and I happened.
118 was it, something?
Something like that, yes.
Mm.
And I happen to have been mentioned in an article about Ikigai in the Daily Express. And so they called me and said, Simon, can you come to the Sky News studios later this afternoon? So that was the luck part, but it was the work of getting
It was
myself
also
out.
lucky that you were near enough to the Sky News studio to get there for the afternoon, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I had to move a few things around, Johnny, admittedly, but
yeah,
it was very fortunate that I wasn't too far from the studios. But that was the
It's
luck part,
amazing.
and then the work is showing up every day to get yourself out there. One of the things I say to entrepreneurs is that there are always two sales that happen in business. The second sale is selling you to others. The
Mm.
first is selling you to you. And if you
Yeah,
can't sell you to you, it's going to remain challenging to sell you to others.
of
And so
course.
that's what I
Yeah.
was doing every day. I was showing up, I was going out there, I was saying I'll contribute to an article, I was building relationships with the press,
Yeah.
uh, and just seeing ways that I could get my brand out there.
There's no doubt that a successful sales career requires self-confidence, self-belief.
Mm,
You can't do it otherwise. Okay, so just to kind of fast forward to this amazing journey with Penguin, I actually know your agent Kizzy.
mm,
She's working with me on a book idea that I've got, by the way,
fantastic.
and yeah, she's absolutely confident that we can follow in your footsteps, maybe a year behind. But
Here's to
how
that,
did that
Johnny.
come about? I mean, how fascinating is this? So you put your first book together. Was the stepping stone meeting Kizzy the agent, or were you in contact with Penguin already?
Yeah, so I'll share a bit of the backstory because
Mm,
it wasn't as linear as it maybe sounds on the outside.
yeah.
So if I rewind back to the middle of 2019, so in the summer, I usually like to reflect on my year and plan for the final 6 months because on average, August tends to be a bit of a slower month. You know, people go on summer holidays and
Yeah, yeah.
spend time with the family. So that usually is a good time for me. At that time, I was reviewing the things on my list that I wanted to work on in sort of the following 6 months.
Mm,
And if I'm honest, Johnny, writing a book was on there, but it wasn't top three priority. It was sort
yeah.
of maybe six or seven. It was sort of down the bottom of the top 10.
Mm,
And it wasn't until I attended an event in October in London. It was Marie Forleo's book launch. Everything is figure outable. And
yeah.
I attended that book launch, and it was very inspiring, to see somebody who has inspired me on my journey as a coach and a
Mm,
speaker to some degree share her book with the audience.
yeah.
And at that meeting, I started to connect with Marie's team. And a little bit of a tip here for those listening. One
Mm,
of the things I love doing when I go to in-person events is to arrive early and to sit at the front.
mm,
And here's why. When you arrive early and you sit at the front, there's a greater probability that you will be able to connect and speak to the team that manages the person that's about to speak.
yeah.
And that's what I did. And I just connected with the team there. I I spoke with people from Penguin, and I was inspired about the possibilities for myself. Uh, but as things go, I did nothing with it for a few weeks, and then I got
Mm,
contacted, Johnny, by a boutique publisher.
yeah.
They sent me an email and they said, Simon, have you thought about writing a book?
Mm,
We would love to have a coffee to explore representing you in writing a book.
yeah.
And then when I share that with my wife is an incredible support for me in my journey. She said to me, Simon, if you're going to write a book, why don't you aim for the biggest publishers on the planet?
Yeah.
You don't have to settle with a boutique publisher.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking. And so what I did is I was inspired by that conversation. And I went and emailed the biggest publishers I knew
Mm,
with no attachment to the outcome. I sent the email knowing that they probably received many of these emails. And I would just be one of thousands that land in their inbox.
mm,
And then I heard nothing from any of these publishers for months.
mm,
And then in January 2020,
yeah.
and just to connect the stories, Johnny, this was not long after my Sky News interview.
Yeah.
And then in January 2020, I get an email back from Penguin saying, "Would you like to come to our offices to discuss your book ideas?"
Mm.
And that's really when the
Had
conversation
you, with
began.
this email, had you sent a synopsis of the kind of book you were going to write?
Not at all, not at all. So what I did is I started cultivating the relationships on LinkedIn actually.
Mm,
So before I even got to sending the email,
mm,
I was starting to build the relationships on LinkedIn.
yeah.
So
Fantastic.
I would kind of look at the people working in these organizations, and then I would send a connection request. I would do my usual voice note. I would start to cultivate that relationship,
Mm,
and then I would get their email address from there. So before I even sent the first email, all of them knew who Simon was, at
yeah.
least in terms of what I did and the content I put together.
Yeah.
So it was more like a warm email than a cold email,
Mm,
which helped to increase the chances.
yes.
And so the conversation with Penguin lasted about five or 6 months before we agreed a contract.
Right.
And where Kizzy came in was once I received the contract, I was like, this looks like a foreign language to me. This
Mm,
was a big document
yeah.
with lots of stuff, jargon and words. I had no idea what they meant.
Chocolate words.
And so I needed someone to help me negotiate the deal, and that's where Kizzy came in for a recommendation.
Mm, yeah. Beautiful. That's fantastic, isn't it? So, all this was done then without you writing the book, but Penguin were confident that you could.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know what was what was their thinking. I'm guessing the Sky News interview helped,
You
and
must have
the other
seen some other
people.
stuff you'd written, I guess, as well, articles and things.
Yeah, so they probably saw a few of
Mm.
those. I mean, I still had to put a proposal together, so there still was that.
Yeah,
I
right.
had to put a proposal together before they pitched it internally.
Okay.
Uh, so that's still something important to understand. So I still had to have at least a sort of structure for what I wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
and so that they could pitch that to their colleagues. But the ideas I started discussing literally from that first meeting. It
Mm.
was the first meeting over coffee, discussing, Simon, what could you write about?
Yeah.
And and all of that happened in real time and very
Mm.
quickly.
Yeah, that's tremendous, isn't it? So, I'm intrigued also about the people that you've got endorsing your book.
Mm,
Maria Folio, I get from the story you've already told about when
yeah,
you met her at a book launch. Um, how do you get Simon Sinek? I mean, he's one of the world's number one best-selling authors, isn't he?
definitely. And
How do you get him to like your stuff? Did you have to pay him, or?
no, that was a real win, Johnny. That was a real win because I
Mm,
got once we got the Simon Sinek blurb. I remember looking at my WhatsApp, and my publisher sent me a message saying, Simon, that's a huge win because it's the first UK author we've had that Simon's endorsed,
yeah.
because he rarely endorses a book.
Mm,
And again, if I go back to this sort of combination of work and luck, I
yeah.
attended an event years ago, at the start of my entrepreneurial journey, when Simon was promoting Leaders Eat Last, his book. And this was a
Great.
private members club in
Yeah.
in London. And I remember looking at the register of all the people that had booked to attend this dinner event.
Mm,
And I noticed, Johnny, that there were only two Simons on that registration list:
okay.
Simon Sinek and myself, Simon.
Yeah.
And so I thought that would be a great icebreaker to introduce myself to Simon at the drinks.
Yeah. Right.
And so that was the first time I met him. And at the end, when I got him to sign a copy of my book, I said to him, Simon, thank you for being an inspiration. One day I will speak with you on stage. And he simply
Mm,
said to me, I look forward to that.
mm,
And so if we fast forward to 2019, I was invited by the World Business and Executive Coach Summit to
mm.
speak at an event alongside, guess who?
Yeah.
Simon Sinek. And
Was
so
that
our
one of these
paths.
Dubai events?
No, this
No.
wasn't the Dubai event. This was an American event,
Right. Okay.
and
Okay.
and and so yeah, our paths have crossed a number of times over the years.
Yeah.
And so when I got connected to one of his team, uh, I simply said to him, "Could you ask Simon when the time's right, if he would be open to providing a blurb?" And
Mm,
he said, "I would try, but if I'm honest, he rarely gives out a blurb, so just to manage your expectations."
yeah.
And 2 days later, he got back with a blurb. And the story I tell myself is that maybe, just maybe, he has a soft spot for someone else called Simon.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe so too, and maybe also it's the long haul that you were prepared to undertake
Mm,
to get to know him a bit and get him to know you. Yeah.
definitely,
It's a
definitely.
story of determination, isn't it? And relentless consistency and just showing up,
And I
being
think
there.
this is why,
Yeah.
going back to something I said at the beginning, Johnny, I think when we touch on relationship building,
Yeah.
you never know who can help you down the line. They may not be able to help you straight away, but you
Mm.
never know years down the line how that relationship can be helpful.
Mm. No, I agree absolutely. Well, look, full disclosure, my new book is to be called The Cult of You.
Mm,
And this is about how anybody can find a voice these days and become a micro influencer in their own
I like
niche,
it.
build a
I
cult
like
like status amongst their community by building what I've termed a social cocoon. So
And
all this is going out there. One day I will speak on a stage next to you about it.
and Johnny, I got to say, I think that
Mm,
book and what you just shared is very timely in
yes,
today's world, because all of us, whether we are running a business or whether we are working for an employer, we all have the tools to create and design our own personal brand.
exactly. No, I agree. So the Cult of You, watch out for it, folks. It will be published by Penguin. That's my
Put
my
it out there,
mission.
Johnny. Put it out there.
That's my mission statement at this point. So if there's any penguins watching, Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for revealing so many insights about your journey. If we can just recap, so you've got to the point now in early 2022 when your book is going to be published by Penguin, one of the world's largest international book publishers in our domain. You have got an endorsement from one of the world's best-selling authors.
Mm.
So clearly you're onwards and upwards. If you could just recap perhaps with one tip, one value bomb for our listeners, if they want to replicate or create a journey similar to yours from where they are today, what's the starting point? How do they get rolling?
Sure. If there's one tip I would share is pick one platform and start building your brand there. I think
Yeah,
with so many people I speak to, whether it's young entrepreneurs or mentees I work with, Johnny, everyone is trying to do it all. Everyone's trying to be, I'm going to do Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm going to do video. I'm going to do images. I'm going to do
TikTok.
podcasts, TikTok, everything.
Yeah,
But the thing is, when you do that, one, you're going to burn out very quickly.
yeah,
And two, you're diluting your attention and audience across
absolutely,
so many platforms.
absolutely.
So if there's one tip I can leave, is start with just one platform or area
Yeah,
and build from there,
yeah,
because then you can master one area, take your
absolutely.
learnings from that and apply it to all the other areas. For me, that was networking at the beginning, was going to in-person events, and then it was
Yeah,
Instagram, and then it was LinkedIn,
yeah,
and now I'm working on YouTube a lot more.
yeah,
So layer things on top, but choose one, start there. And remember, consistency always beats intensity.
yeah. Wow. Well, Simon, this has been absolutely fantastic. Not only can I not argue with any of that, I fully endorse it. And if
Mm.
anybody in my community hasn't heard me say this yet, I'll say it again just to echo Simon's words. Focus on one thing, guys, one platform, one
Mm.
offer, one ideal client, and you'll get there. Simon, I can't wait for your book. When's it out?
So it is out on 21st of April.
Yeah,
So if you are following me on social media, there'll be lots of stuff going out into the lead up of the launch.
brilliant.
And I hope to see some of you at the launch events. There will be both private and public launch events.
Yeah,
And there'll be some bonuses for the pre-order community. So if you have pre-ordered and you're on my list, there will be some bonus and prizes going out in the weeks before launch.
yeah. Fantastic. I just want to share a book title from Asif, and we'll endorse this, obviously. How to Release That Inner Demon and Bring Out Your Inner Child to Achieve Success. That's your subtitle, Asif. I think we need to come up with
Yeah, that
a
sounds like a
snappy
subtitle to
title
me.
for it. But there you go. Wonderful. Simon, I applaud you, mate. Absolutely well done. And yeah, congratulations on all the good luck.
Johnny, thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting you in real life very soon.
We will do that for sure. Take it easy. And thanks everybody for watching. See you all soon. Bye.